Well, folks, we've got a jam-packed story for you today. I mean, there's so much news, I hardly know how to take care of it. But I want to start off with Wendy. Wendy, do you know who the ultimate narcissist is in our society?
Oh, Lord have mercy. There's a lot of them right now.
Yeah, well, take a clue. Take a wild guess.
The ultimate narcissist right now. Well, I know who the liberals think it is.
Well, who do the conservatives think it is?
Conservatives probably, I just don't know, Pat.
Oh, okay.
I'm afraid to insult somebody.
Well, our last president, if you can believe, he had a speech that was less than an hour. He referred to himself 92 times, according to Drudge, 92 times in one short speech in which he was criticizing the president as being a, quote, tin pot dictator or something. But, I mean, Barack Hussein Obama is the most narcissistic human being. He just thinks he's the greatest. 92 times. Can you believe that?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Man, what you learn is don't say I. You know, take I. If you're writing a speech, forget the I's and the my and all that stuff. All right. There's a group down in Honduras called Libre. It's sponsored, has one of the Honduran legislators is active in it, Libre. And the concept of Libre is to cause chaos and confusion. That's what they do. It is an old communist trick to cause confusion and chaos in an otherwise peaceful society. Well, Libre has spawned this caravan of Central American migrants heading for the United States. They're talking about as many as 7,000 people now, and it's expected to reach the U.S. border just in time for the elections. And some immigration experts believe there's a hidden agenda at work. Well, there isn't any question about it. There's a hidden agenda. Wendy?
Yeah, meanwhile, Mexico has promised to stop the caravan in its tracks after President Trump threatened to cut off U.S. aid. CBN's national security correspondent Eric Rosales has that story.
President Trump on Monday said the United States will begin to cut off or reduce aid to countries like Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, as citizens from those countries continue to make their way to the United States border as part of the so-called Caravan of Migrants. President Trump also declared an emergency, stating that unknown Middle Easterners had joined the group.
The Democrats would rather destroy American communities than defend America's borders.
This whole problem that has been going on now, really since 2012, was precipitated by the Obama administration's creation of DACA. People got the message that kids could stay.
Steve Camarata of the Center for Immigration Studies blames Congress for not fixing the broken immigration system. Some immigrants, he says, are using these undocumented children to get their day in court and never showing up for it. Camarata adds these Hondurans have traveled through Guatemala and Mexico, and both countries have asylum procedures, but their goal is to live illegally in a rich country like the United States.
The number of people in the asylum queue right now is is 300,000 plus. That has grown more than sixfold in the last few years. So there's been an explosion. The whole thing is kind of ground to a halt, our ability to process these claims. Everybody knows that. Come with the kid, we'll release you into the United States.
Heritage Foundation senior policy analyst Ana Quintana writes that former Honduran legislator Bartolo Fuentes, a member of the radical leftist Libre party, is behind the caravan. According to Quintana, Libre is not a political party, but a destabilizing movement. It was founded in 2011 by the former president of Honduras, Manuel Zelaya. She adds Zelaya is an ally of socialist governments in Latin America, like the Castro regime in Cuba. She calls this caravan antic right out of the left's disorder and chaos playbook. Pentagon sources tell CBN News right now some 2,100 National Guard troops are working side by side with Border Patrol agents. Right now, the Pentagon has not received any orders from the president to increase those numbers along the border. Eric Rosales, CBN News.
My counsel to the president, and he's probably not taking it, is to get a division of United States troops down there, a whole division, 20,000 men. And what we need to do is to set up the soup kitchens, to set up some tents, to set up, if nothing else, some cots out in the open so that we can house these people, but we can't let them come into the United States. We cannot have this kind of attack on our borders. It'll happen year after year after year. If this one succeeds, and the next one will come, and the next one. And what Trump is saying, we've got to fix the broken immigration policies. And we can't do it. I mean, the Obama administration has left this thing in tatters. And now what are we going to do? Well, we've got to have intelligent immigration policies. It's not that we want to keep people out. We're a nation of immigrants, so, you know, it refreshes our population to have new people coming in, but you want people who are scientists and engineers and business people and people who are capable, and not poverty-stricken people with diseases who you'll have to put on welfare immediately and begin to give all kinds of Social Security and social benefits. We can't have that. I mean, the budgets of these states won't hold it. The budget of the United States can't stand it. And not to mention what it'll do to the fabric of our society. We cannot allow this. But the president had better get a division down there right now. If he hadn't done it, he said he's going to use troops. Well, according to the law, he's perfectly capable of doing that. The so-called posse comitatus laws don't apply to an attack on our border. So you can put United States troops to defend our borders, and we should do that. Now, speaking of the president, he had an amazing rally in Texas last night. He's campaigning for somebody who used to be a bitter rival. He called him Lying Ted, but now they have a love affair. He loves him, and he was down there in Houston, 100,000 people, you know, screaming and shouting about "Let's make America great again." John Jessup has more.
Thanks, Pat. The president campaigned in Houston for Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz has a narrow lead over his Democratic opponent, and the GOP hopes to seal the deal. CBN's Abigail Robertson explains why the Lone Star State is still in play.
In just under a decade, Texas has grown by more than 3 million people, which many Texans say is a big reason why Democratic Senate candidate Beto O'Rourke is polling historically well against Republican incumbent Senator Ted Cruz. That's why President Trump came to Houston Monday night to help his former primary opponent.
Got to vote for Ted Cruz. Democrats, the Democrats are a big risk to the American family, and our country cannot afford to take those kind of risks.
John Graves, president of Vision America, tells CBN News he's not surprised to see Republicans losing a grip on the conservative stronghold.
I've been telling people for years Texas is trending that way. Donald Trump won Ohio by 8.1%. He won Texas by 9%. And people think of Ohio as a purple state. They don't think of Texas as one.
Vision America encourages Christians around the country to vote. Their nonpartisan voter guide for Texas shows where both candidates stand on issues like the Supreme Court, right to life, and protecting religious liberty. Over the weekend, however, an unknown person made fraudulent copies of the guides, changing the text of the issues, and mixed them into piles passed out at multiple churches in Texas.
They snuck inside churches to deceive church members. And I've been around this for over 20 years. I've never seen or heard anything like that.
O'Rourke has seen support from some pro-life women in Texas unhappy with the families being separated at the border, and the fake guide claims Senator Cruz supports this. Cruz told CBN News he strongly opposes the policy.
I can tell you, when we saw the issue of family separation, I introduced legislation. I stepped forward and led legislation that would mandate families stay together, that we keep families together, that we keep kids with their parents.
The fraudulent guide also claims O'Rourke supports the right to life because he increased access to health care, without showing his stance on abortion.
I will only vote to confirm a Supreme Court justice who believes in a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body.
O'Rourke strongly opposes the president, saying he will vote for impeachment if elected and will not support a wall on the southern border. Cruz, on the other hand, has embraced the president, inviting Trump to headline the Monday rally where tens of thousands gathered.
I am honored honored that President Trump is here endorsing and supporting my campaign, and I look forward to campaigning alongside him in 2020 for his re-election as President of the United States.
O'Rourke has raised more than twice as much money as Cruz's campaign, but with a short window left until Election Day, Cruz still holds a substantial lead in the polls. Reporting from San Antonio, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Pat, O'Rourke has a clear competitive financial advantage, but it's still an uphill climb there in Texas.
Well, it's Texas. Let's face it, Texas is still conservative, and I think Cruz is going to go ahead. But O'Rourke is... Oh, they call him the new Kennedy and all that stuff, but he's not telling everybody what he really believes. And when you hear what he really believes, I'll vote the first thing to impeach the president. What are you impeach him for? What's he done that's impeachable? Well, I'm going to vote to impeach him anyhow. Well, that's not the kind of senator Texas wants to see. But in any event, it looks like Cruz is going to win, but that rally by the president was just extraordinary. I mean, if you saw it on television, it was extraordinary. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, Turkey is using the drip, drip, drip method of getting the truth out about what happened to that Saudi journalist. So John has more on that.
That's right, Pat. Turkey's president promised to reveal the naked truth on the murder of a Saudi journalist today, but he fell far short of delivering any new details. In a speech before Parliament, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi's murder was premeditated and carried out by a 15-man Saudi hit squad. 7 of the men involved in the murder reportedly belonged to the protection detail of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
My call is first and foremost to Saudi Arabia's King Salman and to senior administration. Istanbul is where the incident took place. Therefore, my offer is for these 15 people, plus 3 people, the 18 arrested, to be tried in Istanbul.
Khashoggi disappeared on October 2nd during a visit to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Pat, the story just isn't letting up.
Well, it's not letting up because the Saudis aren't telling the truth. I mean, they've lied and lied and lied. It's been dissembling and a half-truth and a little here and a little there. Now it turns out there was a body double of Khashoggi walking around after they killed him. And they had some kind of a bone saw, and they said, well, he was killed in a fist fight and somebody choked him. Well, why do you bring a bone saw if you're going to, and where's his body? I mean, it was a premeditated murder. You know, there's a lady named Maureen Dowd who writes in the New York Times, and she had a very, very perceptive column, and I'd like to congratulate her for about Saudi Arabia. And what, in essence, she said is they have bribed their way into the hearts of America. They have set up foundations in schools. They have paid huge amounts of money to universities. They have given money to politicians. They have financed all kinds of projects in America. And they have done everything they can to bring forth that Wahhabi version of Islam into the country. But what she also points out, we should not forget, is that the people on 9/11, when they went after the towers in New York and the Pentagon, these men were all Saudis. They were all Saudis. Muhammad Atta was a Saudi. And Osama bin Laden, like it or not, was a Saudi, a wealthy Saudi, I might add. And they have bribed and cajoled their way. Right now, we're producing more oil in the United States than they are. And oil or not, or arms deal or otherwise, we cannot be allied with a group of people who have persecuted women and have kangaroo courts and have this religious police that is just incredibly bad. They were supposed to be our friends. And as she pointed out in the story, after 9/11, the Bush administration allowed the entire family of the ambassador and all his relatives to get on a 737 and several planes, I guess, and fly out of here before there was any repercussions or they were brought up on any kind of charges. So it's time that Mohammed bin Salman get brought to trial. He's responsible for murder, and I think the president's got to say, okay, we still want to maintain a relationship with the Saudis, but we cannot have this anymore, these things they're doing, and we certainly can't allow this man to go scot-free. And we can't excuse him or try to make any kind of accommodation with him. He's a murderer, and he's had a hit squad, and there's no question that this was premeditated. This is a hit squad that came in when they have body doubles and they have bone saws and they have all this kind of stuff. There's no doubt they intended to kill this man, dismember his body, torture him, and then hide the evidence. And that's what they've been doing, and nobody with any intelligence is buying it. They've been lying through their teeth. John.
Pat, a series of earthquakes struck off the western coast of Canada Sunday and Monday. 3 quakes occurred near Vancouver Island about an hour of each other on Sunday night. 2 measured 6.5 and the third 6.8. 2 smaller quakes hit on Monday. No damage or tsunamis were reported, but seismologists say the unusual occurrence is a reminder of the complicated tectonic setting in the region. Well, during these times of uncertainty, the world is looking at the upcoming November elections as one of the most important in U.S. history. 2 American Christian leaders took their concerns to Jerusalem recently. There, they told CBN's Chris Mitchell why they believe prayer and action are the keys to the midterms.
On November 6th, Americans will decide the makeup of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the next 2 years. Christian leaders Cindy Jacobs and Lance Wallnau told CBN News the church can play a vital role in those elections.
I think that we need to pray that God will raise up righteous leaders. We're at a tipping point for the nation, and I believe that if we do not vote righteously, then we're going to see some things start unravel. So as intercessors, we want to pray, you know, that God will be exalted.
Wallnau sees freedom on the line and a time to act.
We need to mobilize in our country so that we are actually able to occupy the spaces where we have freedom and push back on having those freedoms taken away. And most Christians don't want to mobilize. They don't want to be activists. But the book of Acts is about acts. And that's the root of activism. You've got to get engaged.
Jacobs is mobilizing a 40-day prayer event.
One thing we're doing is there's a group of prayer networks that we have all banded together, and we have something called Pray in Unity.
The website prayinunity.org provides prayer guides beginning September 28th through Election Day.
You can sign up, you know, prayer walk your street, or find a prayer group at your church. But please pray. Pray for your family, but always pray beyond your family, because your family will suffer under unrighteous administrations if you don't pray for the nation.
They both agree prayer is a big step, followed by actually voting.
We have to pray, but we have to mobilize and vote. And I think that sometimes we think that the prayer is a substitute for the corresponding action. And you can't hire someone else to do your civic duty. You got to vote for the congressman that's in your district. You can vote for the senator in your state. These are elections right now where you have direct authority in your territory. And so this is where Christians have to show up in their own territory.
You know, voting is spiritual. Voting is actually a spiritual act, because we're called to steward our nations. We're called to disciple our nations. So if we vote, then we will get righteous leaders.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Pat, back to you.
You know, Jesus was given a choice. They said, who should we pay taxes to? Should we pay taxes to Caesar, or should we give it to God? And he said, show me a coin. And he looked at the coin and said, whose face and superscription is on this coin? They said, it's Caesar's. Okay, render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. What belongs to Caesar when we live in a free country is intelligent citizenship. The average person in America can't tell you who their congressman is, who their senator is. They don't have a clue about the separation of powers. They know almost nothing about the Constitution. And it's just remarkable what they don't know. But we have to be intelligent, and then we have to vote. And I'm telling you, folks, this election is crucial. we're looking at a time where we're facing either continued order and prosperity, or we're going to look at chaos and negativity. And I'm just not one who's going to vote for negativity. I think it's time, but you must go to the polls. And I think, and I don't know about the registration. Some people you can register right on the day of the election. So some you have to be registered, but it depends on your state. But nevertheless, assuming you are or can be registered, you need to vote. You need to vote. It's just absolutely crucial. I mean, here in Virginia, for example, there's a tremendous amount of money. I talked to a congressman yesterday. He said it's a record amount of money being spent in this 2nd district. Record. They've never had this much money being spent on a congressional district before. Here in Virginia. In the second one, where we live in right now, in this one, which, you know, I mean, it's a record amount of money that people are just spending. And like in Texas, that O'Rourke has raised so much money. And it's, you know, the big leftist groups are pouring money in to try to shift the balance. And, you know, it's just so vitally important to vote. It really is. So render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Do both. But in terms of Christian citizenship, what belongs to Caesar is your informed, intelligent, active citizenship. Do not sit home on Election Day, and it's coming up with just a few more days. We haven't got many more days.